Good morning. It's Wednesday and we're almost to the middle of the month already, and it's great to be back again. Missed you guys yesterday. I know it was a great day. Katie kicking some rear at the helm yesterday. Thank you so much for taking the leadership role. I really appreciate it, and to the whole staff for stepping up. And when I had to do a presentation to the board of supervisors virtually yesterday on Zoom, so that was fun. So it's great to be back today with Doug Thomas, and Doug is from Crown Nurseries LLC in Red Bluff, up there in the North State, and we're going to learn a little bit more about what Crown Nurseries does in just a bit. So thanks, Doug, for being here, and welcome.
Thank you.
And we'll get started because today we're focused on nurseries and plant production. The question of the day for all of the coordinators is going to be, what is the last plant that you planted? Could be in your garden, it could be in your front yard, it could be at your church. I don't care, wherever you planted it, and what was it and why? So I'll start. My name is Mary Kimball. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Land-Based Learning. And I did some work in my backyard a couple of weeks ago. And I planted several different kinds of really flowering plants around a pond that we have put in. The pond itself is not done, but I also put in, which is kind of the fun part, was a whole bunch of floating plants on the pond, and some plants that actually are in soil but like right under the water, like some horsetail and a bunch of different other kinds of pond plants. And they're already growing, and it's awesome because they're starting to cover the pond. So it's looking good, and all the little mosquito fish really appreciate it. All right, Dana, you're up next.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dana Baker. I'm the Tehama County Farms Leadership Coordinator, and I just really want to thank Doug for joining us today. I'm coming to you from Red Bluff, and the last plants I planted were honestly some zinnia seeds. I'm still yet to get my garden in. I know I keep telling you folks I'm going to get that garden in, but the zinnias did get planted, and so hopefully they'll come up. Our hummingbirds and butterflies love them when it's hot summer days, spring or summer up here, and they do really well. So that was the last thing.
Yay. All right. I think Joseph might be having some challenges. Is that what I'm seeing? So Katie, why don't we go to you?
All right. I'm Katie Wortman. I am in Fresno and the Central Valley Farms Leadership Coordinator. In our garden this year, we had two newer to us that we planted were okra and loofah. So I'm really excited to see the fruition of those. And what I'm going to do with the loofah, I don't know, maybe just take a shower, but
clean yourself.
Yeah. So I just thought it was really cool, and I didn't know until a few years ago that it was like actually grown in a plant. So I thought that was cool.
Yes, it is fun actually, and I like it. Some of our farmers grow it and then sell it at farmers markets, which is pretty cool. All right, we'll switch over to Romy.
Good morning. My name is Romy Wattenbarger. I'm the current County Farms Coordinator here in Bakersfield. And I've been planting a lot of little cherry tomatoes and stuff here at our house and at the ranch, just trying to get them growing because they're really sprouting now. And we got little green tomatoes coming. So I love tomatoes. Those are my favorite. So.
I know, and cherry tomatoes always come first, which is fun. All right, Letty, we'll go to you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Letty Hernandez, and I run the program for Monterey and Santa Cruz County. I actually just planted something this morning. I have a bunch of cosmos that really need to be in the ground now, so I'm trying to find spaces for them to go.
Awesome. All right, and Joseph, we're going to finish with you today.
Good morning. My name is Joseph Montoya. I'm the Farms Leadership Coordinator for the Sacramento Valley. Planting-wise, just tomatoes. I don't remember which breed. They're definitely not Romas. Probably, is it beefsteak? They're just like the big, yeah
probably.
the big funky ones. What is it? Some eggplant. It's always like just super delicious, and jalapenos.
You're going for the Solanaceae there, I see. Good stuff. All right, very good. All right. We're going to now introduce Doug Thomas. And Doug and I don't know each other, but we kind of know each other because we were both also graduates of the California Ag Leadership Program. He's a more recent graduate from class 47, and I was way back in 32, which feels like a really long time ago now. So Doug, it's great to have you on, and thanks for joining us from Red Bluff this morning. Why don't you give it a little introduction of yourself, where you're from, and some background as to where you got to, how you got to where you are today.
Great, thank you very much for having me. So I grew up in a little town in what we call Southern California now, but growing up there was Central California. It's a little town called Kern Valley or Bodfish, Lake Isabella area. And so about 45 minutes east of Bakersfield. And so my path to farming was kind of long and windy. I graduated high school there, and I went and joined the Army, and I was in the Army for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And when I got out of the Army, I went to UC Davis and started with a degree in animal science there, and I changed majors and actually got a degree and a master's in wildlife biology. Mm-hmm. Along the way, I had joined the Alpha Gamma Rho fraternity there, and I started taking summer jobs in ag. So slowly as I transitioned and finished with my degrees in wildlife biology, I started farming rice. I had an opportunity to farm some rice with my family and my wife. And that kind of was a good fit for wildlife biologists. I specialized in waterfowl, and I did that for a few years. And then I had an opportunity to come here and work with Crown. And so it was, like I said, there's a lot more in there. I actually did, I spent a total of 12 years in the military with a couple tours to the Middle East, several jobs in the peach industry, the rice industry, and then found my way here to the strawberry nursery industry.
So that is interesting. How did you find your way to the strawberry nursery industry? And actually, before we do that, why don't you describe what Crown Nurseries does and what your role there is, and then we can kind of go back to how you got there.
Sure. So what we do is 99% of our business is a commercial strawberry nursery. So I don't know how familiar you are with the strawberry industry, but strawberries aren't grown from seeds. Everything's grown from a transplant. And so all of the commercial production on the coast of California, from the Orange County area all the way up to the Watsonville, Salinas area, those are all transplants that are grown up in the far northern California area in Oregon. Our largest farm is in a little town called Doris, or McDowell in the Butte Valley, which is just south of Klamath Falls on Highway 97. And that's where the far majority of the plants are grown for the state of California. All the nurseries are located there. There's also some production that happens in Susanville, but we're focused there in Butte Valley. So that's a portion of it. And so those plants are for one planting cycle, the planting cycle that I think we're most familiar with that occurs in the fall. But then we also have what we call our low elevation nurseries that are located in the Central Valley, from I'd say generally the Manteca to the Merced area. And that's where we grow plants for a summer planting program in the state of California, also for international and some domestic sales outside of the state in the U.S. My role here is to I handle the sales portion for Crown, so I'm interacting with the strawberry growers from all those areas, as well as our international customers, primarily in Mexico, some to the Europe and the Middle East and India. So we do about 130 to 150 million strawberry plants a year at Crown.
That's all.
We're one of the smaller nurseries, to be honest. Yeah. It's a small industry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm being sarcastic. That seems like a lot of plants to me. So you, yeah, you were in livestock. You studied, you studied, like you said, animal science, and you went to wildlife biology. You grew rice. You did so, but how did you move over to this nursery side? What was it about this company specifically, and your experience, and maybe that was military experience as well, that kind of prepared you for this job in sales and now as a general manager?
I'd say succession planning was the primary driver. The general manager that was here, but well, he's still here. He's, like I said, we're in a succession planning transition period. I knew him through he was my wife's family, my wife's uncle actually, and he approached me about taking a position here, and as far as being prepared for this, this is such a different. This was such a different role than anything I'd ever done. Everything I'd done here prior to this had always been more of an operations and a production level. And this was a real big change for me into more of a general manager, more of a strategic planning and customer service, whereas something that wasn't, that wasn't something that I was used to. And it's strange. It's amazing how plastic you can really be with your personality and jump into roles that you didn't foresee yourself doing until you actually try it and try and figure it out. I don't want to say figure it out as you go, but try and understand it and learn as you go.
Absolutely. What is one of the best, what is something that you really like about sales that maybe you didn't think that you would like, kind of back to that, working on your personality and making sure. Yeah.
So I'd always considered myself an introvert, and that was just my natural. I think that's my natural rest position. Well, when you go through, one of the things that kind of thought was funny is you go through ag leadership, they test you, and one of the things I was actually right in the middle of being a introvert extrovert, and so they always talking about personalities being a preference, right? So I learned that I could be extroverted or introverted. If you ask a lot of my classmates in the ag leadership program, they'll tell you I'm incredibly extroverted. That's not the case. So it was interesting, and I never considered myself that. So it was interesting to go out, meet people, engage with different customers, do cold calls, things that I was absolutely uncomfortable with and had no experience with. But just being able to do it, just like I said, with that plasticity that comes with your personality. If you recognize that because you feel like you're one way, well, it's not set in stone. It is a preference. You decide who you want to be. And if you want to be a person that goes out and be a salesman, yeah, it might be harder for somebody that's just a natural over the top extrovert and finds all that stuff easy, but you can figure it out and you can make it work for you.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Yeah, I always loved sales because I was a big extrovert. But I think that's a really good point. Is that a lot of people who just think, oh, I can't do that. I'm not that outgoing or whatever. That's off, not possible for me. It's completely not true at all. It's something you want to do, and certainly something also you can train yourself in if that's something that you're interested in. So I want to go back to strawberries. So I have a question, and I know I've asked folks about this before, but I always forget the answer. So I'm going to ask it again, which is why is the nurseries for strawberries up in Northern California and Oregon, and it tends to be a little cooler, to have a higher elevation, but then they're grown in like the Salinas Valley? That is always confusing to me. Can you describe why that is the case? Why are the nurseries and the transplants grown up in one area? Yeah.
So it's primarily it's a function of chill hours. For those of you that aren't familiar with the concept of chill hours, and plants do better when they're hardened off. As a growing plant senesces itself due to day length change and temperature change, they start moving starches out of the growing part of the plant into what we call the crown, which is that growing tissue. So by being up there in Butte Valley, which is probably the coldest place in California early in the season, that late September, October timeframe. So when it's 100 and 105 degrees in Fresno or down here in Red Bluff, up there, the nighttime temperatures can be freezing. So we start accumulating what we call chill hours, and that's an hour of temperature below 40 degrees. So we start acquiring those up there as early as late August. And the more chill you have on a plant, the better it's going to do. So the idea being that if we grow everything up there where we start getting that natural chill hours in the months of in the time period of late August to the 1st of October or so, then that plant it'll have some better survivability and it will produce better. So then those plants are dug there. The harvest process, we call them digging. The plants are dug, brought down to either packing facilities here in Red Bluff for us, and then transported, trimmed and packed, and then transported down to the fruit growing regions. And we recognize that the fruit growing regions of California are incredibly special due to that coastal climate. That's why California is can't remember off the top of my head, but something like 90% of the nation's, or 80 to 85% of the nation's strawberry production occurs here in California, primarily in that coastal region of those 3 districts, the Oxnard district, Oxnard Ridge County district, and then you have the Santa Maria district and the Watsonville district. So you have two different disconnects. You have one area that's good for growing the plants, and then you have a whole different area that's good for growing the berries. And that's
okay. That's great. And they are, strawberries are biennials or perennials? They're perennials? So how many years do they live usually?
It's an annual production system.
It's just annual. So you are transplanting every year?
Yes, we plant every year. Yeah.
And those companies that you're selling to, do they have to put their orders in, really far in advance for you guys to grow for them, or are we talking months? Are we talking years? What kinds of time frames are you selling? Like, are you selling for like 5 years from now, or are you really just selling for next year?
That's kind of the trick of this whole thing, because strawberry plants are an octoploid, which means
everybody get out their Google dictionaries.
Yeah, so that's octoploid. So what an octoploid does, obviously we can't grow them for seed. Every variety is unique. So there's a little bit of crystal ball that comes involved in this, because the plants that are going to be planted in 2021, we actually started producing those in 2017. Can I grab something real quick that's kind of cool?
Yeah, go for it.
Hold on, just a second.
Sure. I always forget how unique and interesting strawberries are. Well, plants in general, but it's always one of those things where I'm like, God, that's so cool.
I love the different terminology that I've never heard before. So I'm writing them down and gonna go look them up later.
So all you science teachers who might be watching this is like perfect. You've got all kinds of good things to be teaching via Doug Thomas and Crown Nurseries here.
So this is how strawberries begin.
Awesome.
I don't know if you guys can see that. This is what we call a meristem. And this process began last December. This variety is Portola. It's a University of California at Davis bred variety that we use as what we call a summer planting, one of the various planting systems that they have in California. So we started that plant right there will go from here into a foundation blocker, into a screen house level. And that'll be harvested next January.
Okay.
Those plants will be put in cold storage, and then they'll be planted in May. And they're that meristem should do about 350 to 500 plants. And then so we do that process for 2 to 3 years before a grower sees a plant. So kind of working backwards to your question, Mary, the first 2 or 3 years of this is us trying to understand our industry and what we think is the trend. What do we think that the varieties are going to produce? What are the growers interested in? So that's where I said there's a little bit of crystal ball in there, because the growers really don't place their orders. We try to get growers to place their orders in the spring for fall for fall deliveries. So it's pretty tough for them because they don't even know what their year looks like. They may not have picked a berry, and I'm already visiting them and asking them what they want for the next year. A good example of this is I've got plants that are being shipped out this week that will be that'll be going down and being planted this week that were harvested last January. Well, I've also got to start planting those plants in about 2 weeks. So I'm asking them for orders for planting that I have to do now and I haven't even had delivered this year's plants to them. So I know that's really confusing how that works. So like I said,
no, I mean, I appreciated that. It's complex, people, again, this industry and what it takes to, number one, breed those new varieties, and then get them from that baby meristem. And what, by the way, Letty was asking, what is that little plant growing in? So hold that thing back up again.
Sure.
Your little test tube. So what is that stuff at the bottom?
So this is a media. This is an auger media. And how this starts is, so we have a greenhouse here where we plant a mother plant. And I don't know if you're not familiar with the way that strawberries are propagated, the mother plant was what we call them. They'll send out runners, and we call those daughters. So what we do, and when I say we, that's a pretty generous term for everybody else around here. This is the I got a mouse in my pocket. So they take they cut into that daughter plant with basically an X-Acto knife under a dissecting microscope, and they pull out the apical meristem, and that is placed in that media, and it's just a speck. It's less than a 1 millimeter speck, and then this is put under artificial light and heat and grows for about well, like I said, we did these ones in December, January. And we're also potting some of them out now and starting to harden them off in various growing rooms to harden them off to go into the outside greenhouse production.
So, and kind of in that same vein, Dana was asking, is this how you get such uniform berries, right? So from a picking perspective and all that, you obviously, and what people want, a consumer tends to like uniformity. So is this the way that uniformity, when you get to the grocery store, happens, that you're taking from a mother plant and then a daughter plant, and it's like these just cell culture, and so the genetics are almost exactly the same or the exact same in every single plant?
I wouldn't say that's how we get fruit that's uniform. That has much more to do with what the growers' practices are, their quality control standards when they're picking. But it's what we do to make sure that all the varieties are true to type, and a lot of what you were saying can be driven through through the specific variety. It's interesting. I saw somebody popped up a question about genetically modified strawberries. So there is no GMO strawberries. The technology exists for what we call marker assisted breeding using CRISPR or Cas9, which is technology where we go in and we do gene editing. It's different than what I would say is typically people think of genetically modified, but we're still not there yet. We still haven't ventured into that. That technology exists, but we haven't done it. Everything that exists now is using traditional breeding methods. And so we have a variety called Fronteris, which has been about 3 years now, and it throws these huge berries. So that if you go to the store right now, or if you went to the store 2 months ago, you're getting these 1 pound clamshells that have like 8 berries in them. And I've had several people ask me, you guys are genetically modifying them because I get these huge berries. They've got to be. It's like, no, it's that variety that's pretty productive and throws a really nice nice berry. I mean, it's the perfect prototypical
It's a
strawberry.
different breed, just like anything else. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
cattle, hogs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They have different sizes of berries and of fruit.
Yep.
So we wanted to make sure to talk about labor because all of these things that you're describing are obviously extremely labor intensive, you know, from the X-Acto knife to
Sure.
the fields. And I just wanted to get a sense for, you know, number one, what are some of, you know, talking about the different jobs that Crown Nurseries, what kinds of jobs would be there, and then specifically focused on the labor side, and what do you do to ensure, you know, the steady stream of labor that you need at certain times of year, especially. What kinds of programs do you take part in that, you know, give us some background as to that side of things.
Sure. Strawberries in general are incredibly labor intensive. Um, not only the berry side of it, but also the nursery side of it. From planting and cultural activities that we do up in the nurseries at high elevation, at low elevation, you've got a lot of hand weeding. Herbicides typically aren't used in strawberry nursery fields just because of the concern with lag effects that could go down, or you don't want to use a broadleaf weed killer that you would use on, say, rice in strawberries, because it'll kill them. So there's a lot of hand weeding. We actually go through and pick the blossoms off of the nursery plants, and that's an
we think we lost him. Are you guys all good?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to see if he's going to come back. Do we see him still on the screen?
I see him on the screen, but he's frozen.
Oh, yeah, he's frozen. Okay.
I'm frozen.
Oh. Where'd you go, Doug? He may or may not be back.
Well, that's unfortunate, because I do know that they take advantage, and they've been one of the few producers in our area to use the H2A program, which I know is where he was going with that.
Yes.
Where they're able to bring in large amounts of labor to use in their industry. And I know here in Red Bluff, they housed them at our local fairgrounds, and they had worked out an agreement and such there. So I think it's, just a neat opportunity for these, and a great opportunity for these employers and these industries to be able to have the labor force they need. And I know it's a ton of work, and my understanding.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, is that the H2A program, while it can be very effective when it works, he's back. Doug, we were attempting to explain, Doug, the H2A program, but of course we're not doing a very good job. So you're back to talk about it. Go for it.
Yep. Sorry about that. So one of the things that we that is probably our most labor intensive process is actually the trimming of the strawberry plants. And so the way the process works is we dig the plants out of the ground. We bring them to our packing shed here in Red Bluff, and the plants have to be hand sorted for size and for root condition. We don't want to send a bunch of plants that are old or small or down to our growers. So we employ here about, I'd say between 400 and 500 people. It floats a little bit here at our Red Bluff, and we also have another facility just about an hour south of here. It's getting harder and harder for us to find people to come and do this job. We've used labor contractors out of the valley to bring people up, and they house them here. So because of the inconsistencies and that's always the concern, is that you have orders that need to go out on, say, October 1st. You're going to start on September 28th or to get them there, and then people don't show up, and now you're stuck. And so your grower's stuck because they've got planting crews. So we started engaging with what they call the H2A visa program last year. And what that does, that allows us to go recruit in different countries, in our case, Mexico, to bring people here on what they call an H2A work visa. We provide all the housing for them. We provide meals and transportation to the workplace, and then they're here for a 6 week. For us, it's a 6 week period.
Okay.
And so it's a complicated and it's a very expensive program compared to using domestic labor. Like I mentioned, the housing, you have to feeding. We have to pay for everything. It's considered a violation if at any point during this we have them pay for like the transportation here from Mexico, the consulate fees, the going to the Social Security office. We can't sell stuff back to them, or it's very complex.
Strict, yes.
Yeah.
And they're not here right now, right? Because this is not the time of year that they're here for you doing.
For us, we don't have anybody here right now. We actually have a nursery in Idaho that we're running this year. And we have a smaller crew that's going to be coming in at the beginning of June. So far that has all been approved. And there are, packing houses and on the berry side of things that have got H2A workers here right now. Well, so obviously with the COVID thing, it's pretty interesting.
Right. Well, that's what I was wondering, is that if, in some ways, I suppose it's good that you haven't had to deal with it yet, but it sounds like you will at some point, or your Idaho plant will. And, that those closer conditions, right, are this kinds of situations where, whether it's where they're being housed or where they're working, right, you're obviously gonna have to, probably even if it's August or whatever time it is, given what we're seeing around the world, you'll probably be looking at some interesting and creative ways to ensure that they're safe. Are you guys already planning on that?
Yes, we're already having to do that with our domestic workforce, and there's so much information that is coming out so fast since this thing really started 6 to 8 weeks ago. OSHA's continuing to update, and we get updates from different cow chamber, fells, different legal advice on how to wrap our hands around it, and we've already put in strategies in place to ensure that our domestic work crew, that we're trying to do our best to mitigate any sort of infection there. Now the H2A thing is going to be a lot trickier because of just the density that we're going to be seeing as far as in our housing and our work areas. We've got people that are standing shoulder to shoulder sorting strawberries. So trying to figure out different methods. Okay, do we social distance? Do we spread everybody out 6 feet? Do we put physical barriers between everybody? How do we do the housing? How do we do the meal times? So trying to plan for every contingency. We're lucky enough that we're going to have there's going to be 3 months of this that's going to be happening with various packing sheds in the cherry industry and the grape industry and the berry industry, that we're going to be able to be a little reactionary. But at the same time, when it comes time to some of the logistics and everything and the equipment you're going to need, we've got to start planning now and trying to get. I mean, it's silly, but think of it like everybody toilet paper is like the indicator of all this, right? Of that was the first thing that was really hoarded. Well, when we've got that many people here, and you have to provide, typically we have cases and cases and cases of toilet paper we have to buy. So something as silly as that you got to get ahead of now, and as these supply chain issues happen. And just try and think of all these different scenarios that can develop between now and then, and try and account for them. It's like I said, it's interesting. There's a lot of action right now.
So I would assume you're learning a lot of new things in this phase of your career because you have to because of everything going on with COVID-19, but and it kind of keeping us all on our toes from that perspective of being creative and figuring out ways, and probably working, like you said, with your network, other companies that are going through this a little earlier than you are, and then you're able to learn from them. Is the industry itself being fairly open about the learning and the sharing about things that they're doing so that you can all work together on solutions?
We are, through just with not only communication with different companies, but the labor contractors that are kind of on the front line of this are that's probably one of your better sources, because they're dealing with stuff right now in various regions, and we're all trying to figure this out and make sure that our employees and our company members are safe. I mean, that's our greatest concern, right? Mm-hmm. So you have that. We want to do the common sense, sensible things to make sure that everybody's stays healthy, and also that you're also dealing with the regulatory side of it. Make sure you're getting your T's crossed and your I's dotted, and make sure you're prepared. As like you said, this thing is changing constantly. So if you've got a couple hundred folks here and there's something that you're short on as far as you can't get and logistically, and it's a challenge, you're really scrambling to do some of this stuff. So it's just doing your best to try and think ahead as far as you can in an environment where it's constantly changing.
Yeah, that's right. Well, good reason to have gone through the Ag Leadership Program and continue to test yourself.
I highly recommend it.
Well, we better let you go. We've extended our time past 30 minutes. It's really great to talk to you, Doug. Thank you so much. This was super interesting, and I learned a ton. I'm sure other people, all the coordinators did, and those who will be watching. And so again, thank you. We really appreciate your support from the Farms Leadership Program and the Center for Land-Based Learning, and hopefully we'll see you live at some point this fall.
I hope so. Thank you.
Okay, take care, Doug.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for your service.
Yes, and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.